We do it with our guy Benjamin Pierce, the beat writer for the Bolts. What's going on, bud? How are you feeling?
Hey man, good. It was a week. It was a week for sure, but the Lightning are always a fantastic distraction when things aren't going your way. So, it certainly helped to see him get that big win the other night, and hoping for another one here tonight.
When can we hope to see you back at Emily Arena, boss?
We'll see. We're kind of taking it day by day right now.
He's day to day, folks. He's day to day.
He's day to day. Yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere. So hoping to be back for sure next week. I'm hoping to maybe try to sneak in before the end of this week. But yeah, we got our rear kicked a little bit, so we're working our way back.
That boy. Give me your before we start talking about the team. You know, you just heard me talking about Cooper and McDavid and the Four Nations. Just give me your just entire takeaway from the tournament, because I don't think it could have gone any better other than the U.S. winning, but I don't think it could have gone any better as far as growing the game and the attention and eyeballs and discussion about the games. Like the NHL, to steal a baseball term, they hit a home run with this thing, didn't they?
Well, I'll tell you what, man. Like you could tell talking to the guys in the weeks leading up to this, like before they even got there, this meant something to the people who were going to participate. This wasn't just a, hey, it's been a minute, we got to see some best on best. Like talking to somebody like Brandon Hagel, who really the first time he's got a chance to represent Canada, and Sorelli talking about, the World Juniors compared to the World Championship, compared to this. Like this meant something, before the game started. And then you see the games happening and you're seeing the fights and the physicality and the blocked shots. Like,
right.
What was the one situation we saw? I think it was Pointer maybe go down, or Gentz, I think it was, go to block a Victor Hedman one-timer.
Oh, Sorelli.
On the Sorelli.
Sorelli on Hedman.
Yeah, I was
like, oh!
And I think everybody was like, oh my God, because
right.
Heddy's got an absolute weapon for a shot. And it's like, just to see in that moment, like, it's those little details where it's like these guys, they want to win this, but it's not even like a want. Like there was real international pride on the line. And I think you got to give kudos to the NHL, because when this first came out, there were a lot of people that were like, this is a stupid gimmick to make money and yada, yada, yada. This tournament surpassed, I think, every expectation for nearly every fan. And you look at a channel like ESPN that obviously recently bought the NHL broadcasting rights, and so they've been more front and center of late. But to see people talking about the opening to that USA-Canada game, those three fights in the first 9 seconds, and I'm sorry, but if you thought that was a dumb start to a hockey game, you are so out in left field on that take. That is so brutal, especially because they got to hockey after it happened, right? Like, it's not like it was all game long, but like just the fact that there were people talking about hockey who literally know nothing about hockey except for it's played on skates and they have sticks in their hands. They wanted to watch that game. And if you would have told the people planning this Four Nations tournament, like, hey, listen, you're going to get to see USA Canada twice. You're going to get to see multiple NHL players represent their country for the first time.
Right.
And you're going to get thousands and thousands of people watching that would never have watched your sport. Like, it is win, 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 win. It was a phenomenal tournament. Obviously, I'm a little biased. I was hoping for a USA victory there at the end, but
right.
I mean, even for Lightning fans, every single Lightning player had a phenomenal tournament, and it was a phenomenal tournament. And it gets you amped up for the Olympics. So hopefully we get to see plenty more of that.
Yeah, you got that right, man. And then when you look at the stop because of the Four Nations, you were like, oh man, the Lightning are playing so good. You don't necessarily want to stop. And with Vasi playing all those games, they needed those 4 games against divisional opponents down the stretch. Ottawa, a couple against Ottawa. You play against Detroit, Montreal. Everybody kept saying 2 weeks ago, this team can't beat anybody in the Atlantic Division. And then they showed them by winning the last 4 before the break. Before we get into what we saw the other night against the Kraken, what was the biggest thing that stood out to you about those 4 games before the break that allowed this Bolts team to go on a little bit of a run?
Well, number one for me is Vasi. Like, it's just one of those things that you forget how lucky you are to watch a guy like that every night, and especially without Johansson, all of a sudden it's a matter of, do we want to throw in somebody like Halverson, like Tompkins, who hasn't played an NHL game yet this year? Or do we just say, hey, you got a 2-week break coming up here, Vass. You're going to have to just kind of lock in here 4 games in 6 days. And listen, you know it. I know it. If you go up to Andrei Vasilevskiy and say, what would you prefer? He wants that net every single chance that he gets. And sometimes he's one of those guys you almost have to tell, like, hey, let's just take a night off here, just reset. Just the way he played, I think just really reconfirmed, like, this guy is still at the top of his game. Obviously, last season, the numbers were what they were, but he was coming off the injury. There were some people like, what does this mean for Vasi's future? And he has been nothing short of a top, for sure, 10, if not a top 5 goalie in the NHL this season. And with all the injuries that the Lightning have been dealt, the fact that they've had him to kind of lean on through all of that has been so, so key. But in addition to that, they've also really spread the scoring around these last 5 or so games. They're getting contributions from bottom 6 guys like Cam Atkinson, and Nick Paul's played up and down the lineup, but he's on a 3-game goal streak. Like, that's what you need from this group, because Cooch is going to be Cooch. Braden Point's going to score goals. Jake Gensel's going to score goals, but you need some depth scoring. And, like, even a guy like Emil Lilleberg, he's obviously known as the big, tough, physical guy. He's up to 13 assists this season. For a third-pairing defenseman who's about to be on pace for 20-plus assists, like, that's just about all you can ask for. And then you throw in the physical side, too. Like, it's been a real team effort, and I think that's what impressed me the most.
Yeah, you look at Vazzy's numbers, and as of right now, is he tied for? He's got 232 goals against, so he's like just a shy behind Logan Thompson for 6th in the league, and then save percentage, he's 3rd in the league with a 920. So yeah, Vazzy is right in there. If it wasn't for the year that Connor Hellebuck was having, then we'd probably having a different conversation today. And then I know a lot of people were wondering, all right, are guys going to be tired? Are guys going to be jacked up in that first game after the break? I don't envy Detroit and Minnesota that had to play Saturday at 12:30.
Yeah,
the Bolts had to play Sunday at 6, which was good, but a guy like Brandon Hagel, who was fantastic in that game, and he wasn't even 100%. John Cooper let us know that he was kind of sick. He comes out, he scores that incredible backhander goal. How impressed were you that the Lightning were able to come out and to be able to win that game against Seattle on Sunday night?
Well, honestly, like, it was a pretty even game. I know the score was a little bit slanted, but like, Seattle had some good looks. They had some chances. And again, Vassy was strong, but even you look at the shots on net, like, the Lightning had some moments where they looked a little bit lost, maybe a little bit tired, just out of sync. But it was those top guys. I think I sent a tweet out in the middle of the first period, like, that Gensel, Point, and Kucherov combo to start the game had like 4 grade A scoring chances in the first 20 minutes. And it was like, did these 3 just go play together at a different, like, Four Nations tournament? Because they were so, it was like they didn't miss any time, and they hadn't played together for 2 weeks. And when you have that chemistry that those 3 have had this season, which I don't know if we were even talking about it enough, because it's so hard to come to a new team and play with other top players and just mesh the way that Jake Gensel has. It's been so impressive, and I don't think he's getting enough credit across the league. But just the fact that they were able to come out and find a way to get that win and to do it again as a group. Vassy had to be strong. Defensively, you love seeing JJ get back on the blue line. And, I think for him, his return just to get on the ice was a step. And now it's okay. Let's keep moving up, keep getting back to where we were before we got hurt. But I was really impressed, because it has been a long 2 weeks. And sometimes we talk about the guys playing, but sometimes it's harder for the guys who got the 2-week break. Right. To maybe go to the beach with the family for a week and hang out. And then all of a sudden you're back and you're like, wow. Geez, Jay, how many times have you taken a vacation and all of a sudden it's the last day and you're like, where the hell did my vacation go? Right?
Exactly. Yeah. You need a vacation from your vacation.
Seriously. So I just thought it was a really, really solid team effort of just guys saying, hey, we're going to find a way to get this done today. And just getting that first win back from whether it's the All-Star break, the Four Nations break every year is such a good way to say, okay, now let's build on it. And I think to do that first game back was big.
What did you make of Moser's return, and also with Darren Radish? Because that's something that I meant to ask Coop this today. I really feel that Darren Radish took his game to the next level when he was playing with Victor Hedman there. And I was a little not concerned, but you keeping an eye on it, right? You're keeping an eye on like, all right, how well is he going to play if he's not playing with Hetty? Because I think the consensus was, all right, Moser's back. If Moser's back, he's going to play with Hetty. But what does that mean for Darren Radish? He's still going to be able to perform at a high level, not playing with 77. So what did you make of Mo's return, and also what Darren Radish was able to do not playing? And I know he did have some shifts with Hetty there. And I think it was the second period where there was some offensive zone time, and Lilleberg kind of got shortchanged a little bit there. They'll go 11-7 tonight, John Cooper. But just talk about Moser and Radish and what you saw from them.
I think for Moser, like you could tell it had been a while. But again, it's 28 games in the National Hockey League, and it was a major injury. I was really impressed with the fact that he played the second most minutes of any Tampa Bay Lightning defenseman. You know, it wasn't a let's ease him into this. It's let's see how you're feeling. Let's go. And when it's a major injury like that, I think if you're a Lightning fan, one big takeaway is that he played so much, because if he goes out there and maybe realizes like, yeah, coach, I'm not going to be able to give you what I normally can. That's when you might see some scaled back minutes, but we didn't. And, you know, I thought the one thing too impressive with JJ was he's a very under the radar defenseman in the terms of he's not going to go out there and make that massive Emil Lilleberg style hit. He's not going to have the toe drag between the legs, gross scoring chance that a guy like Darren Radish might have. But he had 3 hits, a blocked shot. Like he's doing what he needs to do to stay involved. And I thought it was a very good return. You know, I'm sure, I don't know if you saw his interview with Gabby Shirley. And he just said, like, you know, I've been kind of chomping at the bit here, and it's just good to be back. And I think we're going to continue to see him get better every single game. I do think, I mean, just you look at the way Lightning fans reacted. People love this guy, man.
Yeah, they do. They
love this guy.
And why do you think that is, Ben? Because like he's not a guy. It's weird, right? Because usually when you bring a guy in and he's not McDonough, he's not Hedman. He's not a big hitter. He hasn't scored a bunch of goals, but and I don't know if this is just the growth of the education of Bolts Nation, but there's a steadiness to his game that I think people really appreciate. And listen, Sergachev was a guy that won 2 Stanley Cups, and Geekie was the guy that made the team out of camp, right? So he wasn't even kind of the biggest name in the deal coming back this way. But you're right, man. And I noticed it at the Block Party Live when he was the guest there, and you could just hear it. Like people in the Bay Area really like JJ Moser. Why do you think that is so early on in his tenure here?
You know what? I think the biggest thing with JJ is you can tell how much he loves the game. And have you ever seen JJ Moser have a bad day?
No, yeah, that's right.
Like even during his recovery process, you know, they'd come off the ice for a skate, and he's literally months away from playing again, and he's in the locker room, and you walk by and he smiles, and I'm not saying good morning to him. He's saying good morning, Ben. And I kind of like, it's the guy on IR saying good, like what you just wouldn't expect it from almost any professional athlete. Like, I don't know if it's possible for JJ to have a bad day. And I think the team has appreciated that too. Like, I think he really does bring a positive influence on the group. And he's one of those guys that he's so smart. I feel like every time I talk to him, I learn something, you know, about his approach to the game or just the NHL in general. He just has kind of that personality that you want to be around. You want to be able to kind of pick his brain on things. And I think for Bolts Nation, it's welcomed. You know, he's one of those guys who doesn't mind doing the things like Bolts beginnings or, you know, telling his story. And he takes a lot of pride in the fact that he's from Switzerland. And I know that he enjoys that. So I think there's some of that connection here too. But kind of going back to the Darren Radish piece of the question too, like that's one guy that I had to admit when I came in, I was looking at the stats from a season ago. And I said, I'm like, how is Darren Radish having the season he just did? And so in the opening weeks when he was kind of the odd man out, and we were kind of waiting to see like what's going on here. And then I saw him play and I'm like, this guy has, first off, a cannon of a shot. He might have the hardest shot on the team. Like, and I think like the nice thing with the Lightning is to have those options, because maybe then you can do some more of that opponent matching. And tonight with the 11-7, you have every defenseman at your disposal. So if you have a D zone face off, maybe you go with a Perbix and somebody else. You go with a Lilleberg matchup if all of a sudden Edmonton's thrown out that fourth line with Adam Henrique, and you're going to have to get a little bit greasier against former Bolt Corey Perry, right? Like,
right.
You have those options, but the fact that Darren Radish has the real offensive capability, and I think with Ratty too, the power play is a big part of that too. We've seen some movement on the power play lately, but he's been a guy who has a dynamic on the power play that you don't really get otherwise without Darren Radish. You almost have to go all forwards on that second unit, or maybe we see JJ Moser take that spot potentially, depending on how that all comes together. But like Ratty doesn't get, again, a guy who has a lot of really, really strong puck skills, and he's got a cannon of a shot. I think the Lightning like where they're at right now on their decor, specifically because they have options. They can move stuff around. They have the option to say, we have 7 NHL defensemen, and it's just a matter of deployment and how or who we're playing.
Yeah, no doubt. And I kind of look at the decor and I'm like, all right, you're in a good spot. And I looked at the third line the other night and I'm like, all right, Gergensons, Gonsalves, they were moving, they were skating. And what do you think, Ben? Because we're getting closer and closer to the trade deadline. I really doubt that Julien Brisebois is just going to stand pat, because he's looking at kind of the middle six, the bottom six. All right, we need probably a little bit more of a scoring punch, whether that's 1 or 2 guys, whether you're calling Geeky back up, whether you're bringing a guy like Isaac Howard up when his college season is over. These guys are pretty much playing for a spot, aren't they? Some of these guys that are, and I wouldn't say maybe Glenn Denning or maybe a Zergensons, but I think the rest of those guys outside of Nick Paul, when you're looking at the bottom 6, when he does play down there, I think these guys are kind of looking around going, all right, well, if there's deals to be made and guys need to be brought in, I'm playing for a spot here. And I think you may see some of their best play. I think you might be seeing that from a guy like Gonsalves and maybe Gergensons right now.
Well, Gonsalves specifically, like, this is a guy who spent 20 games here, got his first NHL goal, and then kind of it just seemed like he needed maybe a little bit of a reset. They sent him down, and when he went down, it wasn't one of those, here we go, we'll see how the rest of the year goes. He was tearing the AHL apart when he went back down, like destroying every opponent he was playing. You could tell, like, this guy went to the NHL and took notes. Then he went down to the AHL again, took more notes. And when he came back to the NHL the second time, all of a sudden he had 3 points in his first 3 games back. I think it was 4 points, 4 assists across his first 5 games back. Like, that's what you want to see if you're a coach or a general manager, when you send a guy who's kind of around that 22, 23, like, this is a guy who could be taking that step to the full-time NHL. He's a guy you took fairly high on the draft. Like, you got to give Gonsalves credit, because how many guys get an opportunity, they go down, maybe they get another opportunity, and you can't really tell a difference. I think you're seeing a huge difference in Gage's game now from the first time we saw him early this season. And I don't know if it's confidence. I don't know if it's just a matter of, this might be my last chance to show what I've got, because obviously I don't know what those decisions or conversations look like, but I've been so impressed with Gage lately. And I think for the bottom 6, they've talked about this season, we want to contribute more offensively. And I mean, geez, the other night, if Luke Glendening keeps his unreal run, the Lightning have never lost when that guy scores. So, like, that pass from Cam Atkinson, Atkinson's not playing tonight, but that those are the kind of plays that you need from your bottom 6, specifically down the stretch as you get closer to the playoffs, because the top 6 in those playoff matchups are often so just kind of break even.
Yeah, they kind of cancel each other out.
Right.
Yeah.
You need some of that bottom 6 push. You have to have it. And I think that's kind of why we're seeing, you look at a team tonight, Edmonton, they're obviously having some issues in goaltending, but if you look at their lineup tonight, they're trying McDavid, Draisaitl, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins all on different lines tonight.
Yeah.
1, 2, and 3 center. There was a point this season when their top line was Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
Right.
So they're kind of doing a little bit of what the Lightning are. I think every team is looking at, we have to try guys in different spots. We have to see what we have, maybe where we need to improve the most ahead of the trade deadline, which all of a sudden is literally 10 days away, right? Like, it's I don't know where the season went, but it's sneaking right up here. So it is kind of that true final test run for a lot of these teams. And I think the Lightning are kind of seeing that too.
What about, I wanted to get your opinion on Isaac Howard. I've been asking a lot of people. I mean, he's just absolutely crushing it for Michigan State. I know it's not like this for everybody, right? I know that some people are like, oh, we'll bring him down to the AHL, give him some time to kind of marinate down there, and then you bring him up. I was looking at the Lightning ages the other day, and like, you guys aren't getting any younger. There's not many guys on this team that are under 25. But I look at a guy like Isaac Howard, and I think if you bring him in here, you're not asking him to play first line minutes. You put him there on the second or third line. I just feel like, and you don't want to wait till next year because you want to be able to get him in the system. Like to me, he's done with college hockey after this year. There's no reason for him to go back. You're a top 1, top 2 scorer. And if you let him go back, you run the risk of losing him. We've seen that at times too. You let a guy go in, and then he's a free agent. He goes plays for somebody else, and then you're like, you have all this hype for a guy like this, and now you don't even get to see the fruits of that labor. If you're Isaac Howard, I want to know why you wouldn't want to come play on a team like this, where you're looking at Stanley Cup champions and all that jazz. What do you make of the Isaac Howard situation, and do you think there is a possibility that we'll see him here in 2025?
I think there's always that chance. I think one of the biggest things with the Lightning is this is a patient organization,
right?
But at the same time, like, this is a team that wants to win. And I think that depending on what happens at that trade deadline, right? Because if all of a sudden, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but if the Lightning go out and make some ads up front, then maybe they say, well, we can sign some of these prospects. Maybe we can sign a guy like Isaac Howard, but maybe we start him in the American Hockey League so he's not just thrown right into the NHL, right? Now, at the same time, the season that Isaac Howard is having is otherworldly. Like, this guy,
right?
And we talked about needing offense from the bottom 6. Isaac Howard's scoring at a pretty pace in the NCAA. He's a guy that's leading the country in goals. Like, sounds like the kind of guy you'd want to add to a bottom 6 that might be looking for some more offense, right? But again, there's so many moving parts to all of that, to every NHL roster around this time of year. I'd love to see it. I think fans would love to see it. But at the same time, like, the Lightning know what they have in Isaac Howard. And I think, I don't want to say that he's surpassed expectations. He's still a very young kid. There's still a lot of development yet to go. But you have to just be thrilled with what you're seeing for Isaac Howard. If you're the Lightning, if you're a Lightning fan, like, this guy, knock on wood, he looks like the real deal.
Yeah, I would love to see some semblance of, like, put bring Geeky back up, put him on that second line, and then third line of a Nick Paul, Dylan Duke, and Isaac Howard, right? Like something like that, because that's the kind of thing where you start looking at, you almost start playing fantasy hockey in your head. Like, all right, well, out of all the guys in the organization, who can you bring in here? And like we said, there's going to be a deal made, right? We're probably going to bring in a forward at some point. Do you trade it 2 defensemen for 1 defense, right? Like, do you do something like that? Because I think when you look at Max Crozier, like, he's an NHL defenseman playing in the AHL. So where do you go there, right? What does that mean for the future of some of these other guys? So it's good to have options, isn't it?
Yeah, well, and again, it's one of those things we talked about, Brisebois, like, you have to give this management group so much credit because over the last 10 years, the amount of future assets that they've traded away to add to their playoff runs, to get guys like Nick Paul, to bring in guys like Jake Gensel. Obviously, that one was a little bit of a lighter price because he was a free agent, but like Ryan McDonough, like these, they've traded pretty high draft picks and they've traded prospects over the years to bring in guys for the stretch run. And they've still found a way to hit on draft picks further down the board. And then when they do get a first round pick, look at what they do with Isaac Howard, right?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't get much better than that because it is a hard league to draft in. It's sometimes the NFL, there's years where there's 41 guys that are going to play, that are going to start the next year. That never happens in the NHL, ever. Right? There's normally 4 to 5 guys that are going to play top 6, top 4 D minutes, and the rest of them are either breaking in, maybe going to split time between the NHL and the AHL. It just, or they go back to college.
To college, yeah.
It doesn't happen that often. So the fact that the Lightning have been able to say, let's make sure that we're hitting on these picks and let's take chances on guys that we like, that we think maybe there's more to this player now than he's showing even. And you have to give credit to the development, the scouting. It's this organization, man. They do it the right way. That's for sure.
Benjamin J Report on Twitter /X. Go check him out. Does a lot of great things for our Tampa Bay Lightning as the beat writer. Ben, miss you, man. I hope you feel better soon. We miss you in the building. So Hope to see you back at Emily sooner rather than later. You heal up, get some rest, and enjoy the game tonight, man. We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks, buddy.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
You got it, pal.